stories and messages to the whole world. We are all proud of you. I'll tell you the story of a mother from Gaza, and this mother is me. My name is Hadil, and last month I turned 30 years old, and several months have passed. And I've not lived through suffering, oppression, and pain like this until now. In my identity, I have grown 1 year older, but in reality, I have grown many years older. Everything I have seen and lived this year is indescribable. I have suffered and tried a lot to get pregnant in my life. I had many operations, and I was given hundreds of treatments. Finally, thank God, the last operation in May was crowned with success, and they told me that I am pregnant in July. You can imagine the joy I felt from now on. After 10 years of waiting, I am finally pregnant. But unfortunately, my joy quickly turned to tears, sadness, and pain. The war started when I was 5 months pregnant, and don't forget that I lived in an area that was under occupation. I was forced to leave it on the first day of the war, and I left it. I left behind a beautiful and adorning experience, and it proved my readiness to receive my child. I left everything in an attempt to survive with my child. I moved around a lot in search of safety. My displacement began with my father's house, then my brother's house, then to a shelter center in a school in northern Gaza. But in a treacherous moment by this occupation, they bombed the school at night while we were sleeping. And thank God we miraculously survived. And the displacement journey resumed, and we moved to a relative's house. And because of the violent shelling around us, we made the decision to move to a school in southern Gaza. That is, in the humanitarian area that this occupation claimed was a safe area. Imagine the suffering of moving and the instability of a pregnant woman. During this period, there was no healthy food. There was nothing for me and my fetus to benefit from. As a result, I lost a lot of weight, and the weight of the fetus dropped too, which caused many health problems. I began to worry about my child. When I entered the incubator, I felt very depressed. The doctors told me that they put 3 children in one incubator due to the lack of health facilities. I took injections to complete the lungs because my child's lungs were not yet complete. In the 9th month, I began to feel very helpless about what I had experienced and what I was experiencing. But I did as the doctors asked, and thanks to God, I gave birth to my child, Wissam. It is true that he was very small, less than 3 kilos, but he did not need an incubator. And there are many details such that I did not find clothes for me and my child. My child was born by a cesarean section. I slept at school on the tiles because there was not enough mattresses or blankets. So imagine a new mother sleeping on the tiles even though her stomach was still open from the cesarean section. Imagine the amount of suffering and difficulty I was living even when I got up to do something. Of course, many health problems appeared after that due to the living conditions I was going through, and I started going to the hospital a lot until I recovered completely, thank God. At that time, I received the news that my house was targeted and that it had been reduced to rubble. The shocks continued when my husband's workplace was also demolished. We became nothing and lost everything. At that time, I was in a classroom with 5 families, and Wissam had difficulty sleeping. I couldn't even provide him with the means to sleep. And he would wake up trembling and terrified with the sound of heavy shelling nearby, and he still does. Everything was very difficult. Soon, the time came for us to flee Rafah as well because of the occupation's decision to invade it. We were displaced to the center of Gaza. We live in tents, and we still do to this day. My child grew up in places that are all unlivable, in an environment that lacks hygiene and in a very expensive life. Even food and basic needs we are no longer able to provide. Now, all of my focus and attention is only on providing the needs of my only child. We are struggling every minute just to stay alive. But we do not know when and if we will survive at the end of this war. Finally, I would like to ask you to pray for us and for all of Gaza, and do not forget me in your support. After Hadil sent me this message to be read tonight, her family was once again displaced due to the occupation's incursion into northern Gaza, and the issuance of evacuation orders over the entirety of North Gaza to force them to flee south. She did not make this decision lightly, and she left behind where she was staying her sister, her brothers, and her mother. I asked them about the decision to stay in northern Gaza, knowing what might await. And her sister Hiba told me, "We're tired of being displaced so much. We literally have nowhere else to go. We'll stay here and be prepared for anything that might happen." Thank you.